The Galactic Academy of Unity was a place unlike any other in the known universe. It floated among the stars, built inside a giant transparent dome that showed the glow of nearby nebulae. Inside its shining halls, students from dozens of different worlds came to learn about science, diplomacy, and the ways of peace. Among them was one of the rarest species in the Academy, a human named Elias Ward. Elias came from Earth, a small and mostly unknown planet that had only recently joined the Galactic Council. Humans were seen as newcomers, curious, emotional, and unpredictable. Most of the older alien races looked down on them. To them, humans were still learning to walk among the stars. Elias didn't care much about what they thought. He wasn't there to impress anyone. He just wanted to learn, explore, and maybe make a few friends. But making friends was not easy when almost everyone stared at him like he didn't belong. A quiet lunch. It was lunchtime in the Academy's main hall, a huge room filled with light and sound. Hundreds of alien students sat together, their tables arranged by species. The air was full of strange smells, spicy Therian mist food, glowing Lurvian cubes, and even a few gaseous meals that floated like bubbles in the air. In the corner of the hall, Elias sat alone. He opened his lunchbox from Earth and smiled faintly. It wasn't much. Just a sandwich made from grain bread, some fruit slices, and a small chocolate bar his mother had packed before he left home. He took a bite, trying to ignore the curious eyes watching him. Humans eating by hand was strange to many aliens. Most used energy utensils or absorbed nutrients directly through skin or light. But Elias was used to it. Then he noticed something odd. At a nearby table sat a girl. No, not just any girl. She was different. Her skin shimmered softly like polished silver. Her long white hair glowed faintly blue under the lights. Her eyes, golden and bright, scanned the hall quietly. She wore a dark royal robe marked with glowing threads that formed an elegant crest. Elias recognized her instantly. Princess Seralia of the Therian Empire. The Therian were one of the oldest and proudest civilizations in the galaxy. They were known for their intelligence, advanced technology, and sense of honor. Their people rarely mingled with others, and their royals even less so. Seralia sat completely still, her food untouched. A delicate plate of shimmering gel spheres and glowing vines that looked more like art than a meal. Her expression was calm, but her eyes carried sadness as if she wanted to be somewhere else entirely. An unusual gesture. Elias looked at his sandwich, then at her again. He didn't know why, but he felt sorry for her. Maybe she was lonely too. Without thinking much, he stood up and walked toward her table. The noise in the room seemed to quiet as he did. Students turned to look. A human walking toward a Therian princess was something no one expected. He stopped a few steps away, holding his lunchbox. "Hey," he said casually, his voice gentle. "You look hungry." Every head in the hall turned toward them. Even the air seemed to freeze. Seralia blinked, clearly surprised. No one spoke to her like that, especially not a human. She opened her mouth to reply, but found no words. Elias smiled awkwardly. "It's not much, but here." He broke his sandwich in half and slid the plate toward her. "It's called a sandwich. Bread, cheese, and tomato. It's safe for most species, I think." For a few seconds, the entire room was silent. Even the sound of distant machinery faded. Then whispers began spreading among the students. Is he serious? A human offered food to a royal? That's against etiquette. But Seralia didn't move. She stared at the small piece of food, then looked up at Elias. His eyes were calm and honest, not mocking or fearful. Slowly, she picked up the half sandwich, studied it with curiosity, and took a small bite. Her golden eyes widened slightly. "It is simple," she said softly, "but warm." Elias chuckled. "Yeah, that's kind of the point." She tilted her head, intrigued by his tone. "Why would you offer your food to me, human?" Elias shrugged. "Because you looked like you needed it. That's what we do on Earth. We share." For a long moment, Seralia looked at him without speaking. Then, in a quiet voice that only he could hear, she whispered, "You're different." And before Elias could answer, she smiled. Not the cold, formal smile of a royal, but a real one. Reactions. Across the hall, the silence broke into murmurs. Some students gasped. Others hid their laughter. A few Therian nobles at a nearby table looked offended. They stood up and left, whispering to each other angrily. But Elias didn't notice. He sat down beside her and together they ate quietly. After a while, Saralia asked him more questions about Earth. "Do all humans eat such food?" she asked curiously. "Mostly," Elias said with a grin. "Some eat strange things, but sandwiches are kind of universal." She smiled again, her voice gentle. "On Therian, food is more than energy. It is tradition. We eat together to share our memories and emotions." "That sounds nice," Elias said. "But I think sharing a simple meal can mean the same thing." Saralia looked thoughtful. "Perhaps," she said softly. When the bell rang and lunch ended, most of the students hurried away. Elias started to clean his table, but before he could stand, Saralia placed her hand lightly on his wrist. Her touch was cool like moonlight. "Thank you, Elias Ward of Earth," she said formally. "For sharing with me," he smiled. "Any time, Princess." As he walked away, Saralia watched him. Her golden eyes shone with something new, curiosity, and perhaps a bit of admiration. Whispers and watchers later that day in the Academy's High Council chamber, several alien instructors gathered to discuss what had happened. "The human boy overstepped his boundaries," one of them said. "Sharing food with the Therian princess is a breach of protocol." "But Princess Saralia accepted it," another replied. "She seemed pleased. It does not matter. The Therian Empire will not approve. They guard their traditions carefully." Meanwhile, Saralia stood alone on a balcony overlooking the stars. She remembered Elias's words. "That's what we do on Earth, we share." No one had ever spoken to her that way before. No one had ever offered her anything without expecting something in return. She didn't understand humans yet, but she wanted to. And far away, deep in the Academy's surveillance room, a dark figure watched the recording of the lunchroom encounter. A mechanical voice whispered, "Contact between human and Therian royal confirmed. Possible influence detected. Continue observation." The figure closed the screen and disappeared into the shadows. A beginning among the stars. That night, Elias sat by his dorm window, looking out at the endless stars. He thought about the princess, her curious eyes, her calm voice, the way she said, "You're different." He smiled faintly. "Yeah," he muttered to himself. "Different isn't so bad." He didn't know that his small act of kindness, a simple half of a sandwich, would one day echo through the entire galaxy. He didn't know that the bond formed in that quiet lunchroom would soon be tested by forces far greater than either of them could imagine. But somewhere across the Academy, the Therian princess also looked up at the same stars, and for the first time in her life she wondered what it truly meant to be human. The stars outside gleamed brighter, as if the universe itself had noticed the start of something extraordinary, something that would change the fate of more than one world. Days passed after the strange lunchroom moment that no one could stop talking about. The story of the human boy who shared food with the Therian princess spread through every corner of the Galactic Academy. Some students found it amusing. Others thought it was bold. But many, especially the Therian nobles, saw it as improper. A human, one of the newest and least advanced species, had acted informally toward royal blood. To them it was almost disrespectful. Elias didn't care much for gossip. He wasn't trying to prove anything. He just wanted to be kind. But kindness, it seemed, could stir more than just hearts. It could shake entire traditions. Unexpected company on the third day after the event. Elias was sitting under a tall silver leaf tree in the Academy's garden. The air smelled faintly of ozone, and small blue birds, or creatures that looked like birds, flew in slow circles above the glowing fountains. He was reading from his data pad, trying to understand alien physics equations, when a soft voice came from behind him. "Do humans always study alone?" He looked up quickly. It was Princess Saralia. She stood there, wearing a dark blue robe with the crest of her royal house. Her hair shone faintly under the garden lights. Elias blinked. Not always. I just didn't think anyone wanted to join me." Saralia walked closer and sat down beside him, not across, not apart, but right next to him on the same stone bench. Elias tried not to look too surprised. "I wanted to thank you again," she said quietly. "No one has ever shared food with me before. It meant something." Elias smiled shyly. "I didn't mean to break any rules." She shook her head. "Rules can be bent when hearts are true." That line made Elias chuckle softly. "That sounds like something my mom would say." Saralia looked at him curiously. "Tell me about your mother. What is she like?" Elias leaned back, remembering. She's strong. Works long hours on Earth. She always tells me that no matter how far I go, I should never forget to be kind. Kindness is a power too, she says. Seralia's golden eyes softened. On my world, kindness is often seen as weakness. But when you gave me food that day, I didn't feel weak. I felt alive. Elias smiled at her honesty. Maybe kindness isn't weakness at all, Princess. Maybe it's the thing strong people do because they can afford to. For a moment, they sat in peaceful silence. Two beings from completely different worlds, sharing one quiet moment under alien skies. The whispering hallways. But the academy wasn't quiet about their friendship. Everywhere they went, people whispered, "Look, it's the human again. She follows him everywhere now. Has he enchanted her somehow?" Even the instructors began to notice. Some warned Elias politely to be careful. Others hinted that his behavior might cause political problems. Elias tried to ignore it. Seralia didn't seem to care either. She kept talking to him during lectures, sitting beside him in the cafeteria and walking with him after classes. One afternoon they were studying near the holographic globe in the central hall. The globe showed all known planets, from the icy moons of Lurvia to the fiery worlds of Kaal. Seralia pointed at a small blue-green dot at the edge of the map. "That's your home, isn't it?" "Earth? Yeah," Elias said proudly. "It doesn't look like much compared to the others, but it's home. Oceans, mountains, forests, and billions of people still trying to figure out their place in the universe." Seralia smiled gently. "Your world is small, but your species is brave. I have read reports. You rise from disaster again and again. You fight storms, wars, even extinction, yet you keep going." Elias laughed lightly. "We don't always make smart choices, but we never stop trying. I guess that's our thing. Never stop trying," she repeated softly. "That is rare among the stars." Her voice was filled with quiet admiration. But before Elias could say anything more, a group of Tharian nobles walked by. Their silver armor reflected the light as they stopped in front of the two. One of them, tall and proud, spoke coldly. "Princess, you honor a lesser species too much. It is not fitting for a royal to sit with." "This." Elias stood up, his hands clenched, but Seralia lifted her hand, silencing him. Her voice was calm but firm. "I decide whom I speak with, Kareth. You may go." Kareth hesitated, his eyes flashing with anger, then bowed stiffly. "As you wish, my princess. But remember, the galaxy watches." When they left, Elias exhaled. "Guess I'm not their favorite person." Seralia turned to him with a small smile. "Let them talk. The galaxy may watch, but I will not look away from truth." Stars and Secrets that evening. Seralia invited Elias to the upper observatory, a dome of glass and light where the stars looked close enough to touch. She told him stories of her world, the shining crystal cities of Tharian, the floating gardens and the long nights filled with soft music. In return, Elias told her about Earth, rainy afternoons, crowded streets, and campfires under open skies. They laughed at their differences. She found it strange that humans cooked their food with fire. He found it strange that Tharians could absorb light as nourishment, but when they spoke about dreams, they sounded the same. "I want to bring peace to my people," Seralia said. "Not just peace through power, but peace through understanding." Elias nodded. "And I want to prove that humans belong among the stars, not by fighting, but by showing what we can do together." For a while, they simply looked at the stars. Then Seralia turned to him and asked, "Elias, do you think humans are dangerous?" He thought for a moment. "Maybe a little, but danger isn't always bad. Fire is dangerous too. It can destroy or it can warm. It depends on how you use it." She seemed to like that answer. "Then perhaps I should not fear the fire." Their eyes met for a heartbeat. No words were needed. A shadow in the dark, but beyond the observatory's glowing walls, someone else watched. A small drone floated near the ceiling, its red lens blinking quietly as it recorded every word. In the security room far below, a shadowed figure reviewed the footage. A robotic voice spoke through static. "Subject Elias Ward continues frequent interaction with Royal Seralia. Emotional connection detected. Predict 72% probability of political disruption. Observation continues." The figure pressed a button. The screen changed to a message marked "Confidential. Tharian High Command." The message read, "Human influence on royal behavior must be contained. Prepare intervention. Trouble ahead." The next morning, Elias noticed the change. The usual friendly nods from students were gone. Conversations stopped when he entered the room. Even the instructors seemed colder. During lunch, he sat waiting at their usual table, but Seralia didn't come. Minutes turned to an hour. He finally stood to leave, but just as he did, she appeared at the doorway, walking fast. Her expression was troubled. "Elias, I must speak with you." They stepped into an empty hallway. "My father's envoys arrived," she said quietly. "They know about our friendship. They warned me that humans must not be treated as equals. They said my actions could damage alliances." Elias looked down. "I don't want to cause trouble for you." "You didn't," she said firmly. "They fear what they don't understand. You showed me something real, something they cannot measure." He met her eyes. "So what do we do now?" Seralia hesitated, then smiled faintly. "We continue learning, but perhaps we must be more careful." "For now," Elias nodded. "Then careful it is." Unspoken bonds. As they walked back toward the main hall, Seralia stopped and looked at him again. "Do you know what makes your people different, Elias?" He shrugged lightly. "We mess up a lot." She laughed softly, a sound like wind through crystal. "No, you care. Even when it costs you. Even when you stand alone," Elias smiled. "Guess that's what being human means." She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "It is what makes you dangerous and wonderful." And then she whispered again, her words echoing from that first meeting in the lunchroom. "You're different." This time Elias didn't blush or look away. He just smiled and said, "So are you." Above them the stars shimmered, bright and endless. But somewhere in those stars, unseen forces were already moving, preparing to test the fragile bond between a human and an alien princess. The friendship that began with a shared meal was about to face its first real challenge. The Galactic Academy never stayed calm for long. It was a place where the best and brightest of every species gathered, and that meant competition never ended. Every year, the Academy held a great challenge known as the Combat Simulation Trial. It wasn't a real battle, but a test of teamwork, strategy, and courage. Each pair of students was dropped into a large virtual world filled with dangers, traps, and missions. The simulation changed every year, designed to test not strength alone, but the ability to think, protect, and survive together. This year's theme was Survival Under Pressure. A dangerous choice. Students filled the main auditorium, whispering with excitement. Holographic lights floated in the air, showing names of competitors pairing up. Elias sat quietly, not expecting anyone to choose him. Humans were often picked last. Their physical strength was lower, and their technology was still new. Most aliens saw them as unpredictable, sometimes reckless. Then a sudden hush fell across the hall. Everyone turned toward the stairs where Princess Seralia was walking gracefully down, her silver robe shining under the light. She stopped in front of the selection panel and said clearly, "I choose Elias Ward of Earth as my partner." The hall went completely silent. The coordinator, an old insectoid scholar named Professor Zern, clicked his mandibles in surprise. "Princess, are you certain? The pairings are meant to balance strengths. The human lacks." "I said I choose him," Seralia interrupted politely but firmly. Her golden eyes glowed with quiet strength. Elias froze in his seat, shocked. Every head turned toward him. Whispers spread like waves. "She's lost her mind. A human partner? Impossible. This will be a disaster." But Seralia only looked at Elias, smiling softly. "Well, will you accept Elias Ward?" Elias stood slowly, his voice steady. "Yeah, let's do this." Into the simulation. The simulation chamber was a giant dome filled with mist and glowing blue light. As soon as each pair stepped inside, they were scanned, and their consciousness was projected into a massive virtual world, one that felt as real as life itself. When Elias opened his eyes again, he found himself standing on a vast metallic plain under a dark red sky. Lightning flashed across the horizon, and black towers rose like teeth from the ground. A voice echoed through the air. "Simulation start. Survive and reach the extraction point. Environment hostile. Duration, 6 hours. Seralia appeared beside him, dressed in light armor made of Therian steel. A glowing crystal blade hung from her belt. Elias looked down. His armor was basic, human-made, and far less advanced. He only had a small energy pistol and a survival pack. "Well," he said with a grin, "at least they didn't throw us into lava." Seralia smiled faintly. "Not yet. First challenge, the storm." They began walking across the metallic plains. The ground trembled under their boots. Strange mechanical creatures crawled from the shadows, drones shaped like insects with glowing red eyes. Saralia drew her blade, slashing through the first one. Sparks flew. Elias aimed his pistol, hitting another right between its sensors. More came. They fought side by side, moving with surprising coordination. Saralia was fast, graceful, almost like dancing. Elias was practical, ducking, using the terrain, firing short bursts. After several minutes, the last drone fell, hissing and sparking. "Not bad," Elias said, wiping his forehead. Saralia nodded. "You are calm under pressure. Most beings panic in their first attack." "I grew up fixing machines," Elias said, smiling. "If something moves and shouldn't, you hit it. Works for both engines and drones." She laughed softly, a sound almost musical. But the sky darkened suddenly. Clouds swirled, glowing green and blue. Saralia's eyes widened. "Acid storm. We must find shelter." They ran toward a cluster of metal ruins ahead. The storm broke within seconds, acid rain sizzling on the ground. Elias's armor started to corrode, smoke rising from his sleeves. He covered Saralia with his jacket, even though her armor was stronger. She noticed his arm burning slightly where the acid touched it. "Elias," she cried, pulling him inside the ruins. He winced but smiled. "I'm fine. Just a scratch." She looked at his arm, then at him. "You would protect me even when I am stronger than you?" He shrugged lightly. "Doesn't matter who's stronger. You're my partner." For a long moment she didn't speak. Then she whispered, "You truly are different." Second challenge. The maze of shadows. When the storm passed, they continued deeper into the landscape. They soon reached what looked like a city made of dark glass and metal. The simulation's next task appeared before them in glowing letters. Find the core beacon inside the maze. Time limit, 2 hours. The city's narrow streets twisted endlessly. Every corner looked the same. Drones floated silently above, watching. After an hour of walking, Elias realized they were going in circles. "It's repeating itself," he said. "A looping maze. The system is using perception traps." Saralia frowned. "Then how do we escape?" "By not trusting what we see," Elias said quietly. He picked up a small piece of metal and dropped it on the floor every time they turned a corner. It helped them notice when they returned to the same spot. But soon, strange illusions began appearing, false exits, phantom enemies, even echoes of their own voices. At one point, Saralia saw a vision of her father, the Therian Emperor, standing at the end of the corridor. "Come home, Saralia," the vision said. "Humans bring only ruin." Elias noticed her slowing down and grabbed her hand. "That's not real. Don't listen." She looked at him, eyes trembling. "How can you tell?" "Because the real you wouldn't run from the truth," he said simply. His voice broke the illusion. The maze walls shifted, the false lights flickering out. Ahead, a bright beacon glowed. Together, they stepped into the chamber and touched the core. The simulation's voice echoed again. "Objective complete. Final phase begins." The last trial, the metallic ground broke apart and both of them fell into a dark canyon. Energy storms flashed around them as new drones swarmed overhead. Larger, faster, more dangerous. Saralia's armor sparked and failed. Her energy blade dimmed. The drones surrounded them, glowing like red stars. Elias moved in front of her, aiming his pistol. "Stay behind me!" "You cannot face them alone," she shouted. "Maybe not," he said, "but I can buy us time." He fired again and again, each shot destroying a drone but draining his weapon's charge. One flew toward him. Saralia leaped forward, slicing it apart even with her dull blade. For minutes they fought together, moving as one. When Elias ran out of ammo, he grabbed a broken drone arm and used it as a club. Sparks and smoke filled the air. Finally, the last drone exploded, lighting the canyon in white light. Both of them fell to their knees, exhausted. Elias's armor was nearly destroyed, but he was still smiling. "We're still alive, right?" Saralia nodded, breathing hard. "Yes, and we finished." The simulation dissolved into light. After the trial, when they opened their eyes again, they were back in the real chamber. Students and teachers watched from the viewing gallery above. The scoreboard appeared in glowing letters. Team Saralia Elias. Survival time. 5 hours, 56 minutes, second place. There was silence for a moment, then applause. It started small, then grew louder, echoing through the hall. Even Professor Zern looked impressed. A human and a Therian. Second place, remarkable. Elias grinned. Not bad for beginners. Seralia looked at him proudly. You were brave. Foolish but brave, he laughed. That's pretty much the human way. But as the applause continued, some faces in the crowd remained cold. The Therian nobles, and a few council observers who whispered quietly to each other. Far away, in the shadowed security room, the same watcher from before watched the recording again. The robotic voice murmured, "Unexpected compatibility. Probability of emotional bond increased. Proceed to containment phase." A bond forged in fire that night under the Academy's glowing towers. Seralia met Elias again at their usual bench in the garden. "You risked your life for me," she said softly. He smiled. "You would have done the same, perhaps," she admitted. "But you didn't even hesitate. You act first, think later." "That's kind of our thing," he said with a grin. Seralia looked at him seriously. "Elias, the council will not like what they saw today. A human standing beside me, fighting with me when it challenges everything they believe." "Then let them be challenged," he said simply. "If they can't handle a friendship, how will they handle peace?" She stared at him for a long time, then smiled. "You are impossible." "Maybe," he said, "but I'm your impossible human." And for the first time, she didn't correct him. As the twin moons of the Academy world rose above them, they both knew something had changed. They were no longer just partners, they were allies. And maybe, just maybe, something more was beginning to grow between them. But far beyond the stars, powers were already moving to tear them apart. Days turned into weeks after the survival trial, but the memory of that day never left the Academy. The name Elias Ward was now whispered through corridors and across star systems. Some admired him. Others feared what he represented, a human showing the strength and courage equal to the galaxy's most advanced races. Princess Seralia, too, found herself under growing pressure. Her council had sent messages reminding her of her position. They demanded she end her friendship with the human immediately. "You are the face of Therian dignity," one message read. "To sit beside a human is to stain your royal honor." But Seralia did not reply. Instead, she sat quietly in her chamber, staring at the stars outside her window. Each light reminded her of what Elias had said during the trial. Humans don't stop climbing, no matter how high the wall. The more she thought about him, the more she realized how much that spirit mattered. The galaxy was full of order, technology, and rules, but it lacked the one thing humans had in abundance: hope. At the same time, Elias began noticing strange things. His communicator was bugged. His access card sometimes failed without reason. One night, when he left the training room, he saw a tall alien with gray skin watching him from the shadows. When Elias turned, the figure vanished. He tried to dismiss it as his imagination. But then his mentor, Professor Talik, called him aside. "Elias," the old alien said softly, "be careful. Some people believe your friendship with the princess is a danger to balance. They fear humans may gain influence over her." Elias frowned. "Influence? She's my friend." "That's all," Talik sighed. "In politics, friendship is rarely just friendship." The words bothered Elias all night. Still, he couldn't stay away from Seralia. They met secretly in the Academy's old observatory, far from the main halls. The huge glass dome looked out over the stars, and no one visited there anymore. Seralia smiled when she saw him enter. "You're late again, human." "Sorry, princess," he said with a playful grin. The cafeteria line was long. Everyone wanted to know what humans eat after surviving death trials. She laughed softly. "You amaze them. You don't even realize it." Then her voice turned serious. "The council wants me to return home. They think you're a distraction." Elias leaned against the glass window. "So that's it? They win?" "No," she whispered. "I'm not leaving yet. Not until I understand why they fear you so much." Before Elias could reply, the lights flickered. The observatory screens glitched for a moment, showing strange data. Encrypted transmissions coming from the Academy's central hub. Seralia frowned. "That's unusual. These channels are private. Someone is sending coded messages off-world." Elias's curiosity sparked. "Can we trace them?" Seralia hesitated. "It's risky. But yes, we could try." Over the next few days, they worked together in secret. Elias, with his quick human logic, found ways to bypass security layers, while Seralia used her royal clearance to open restricted systems. What they discovered left them both speechless. The encrypted files revealed a covert organization known as the Consortium of Balance. It was made up of politicians, admirals, and council members from multiple species, including Therian officials. Their plan was clear: to start a war between the Therian Empire and humanity's colonies. The files even mentioned Elias's name. The humans' growing influence on the princess must be used as a spark, one line read. If they are seen together, it will justify the claim that humans manipulate royalty for power. Elias stepped back, stunned. They're going to frame us. Seralia's golden eyes hardened. They want to destroy any chance of peace. Another file showed even darker details. The consortium had already sent agents to Earth to sabotage diplomatic channels. They wanted to portray humans as unstable and dangerous. Once war began, the Therian fleet would strike first, destroying Earth's colonies before the truth could spread. Elias clenched his fists. We can't let that happen, Seralia nodded. If we expose them, the Council will have to stop the war. But how? Elias asked. They control everything. She looked out the window at the Academy lights below. We need proof, something they can't deny. That night they broke into the Central Archive, the most secure data vault in the Academy. The air shimmered with energy fields and glowing symbols. The entrance was guarded by drones, but Seralia used her royal ID to disable the outer layer. Inside, rows of floating data crystals hummed quietly. The room felt ancient, sacred even. Search under Operation Dawnfire, Seralia whispered. Elias ran his fingers over a crystal panel. Got it. As he activated the file, holograms filled the air, maps of human settlements, Therian battle plans, and council orders marked confidential. The evidence was overwhelming, but before they could copy the data, alarms blared. Red lights flashed and a metallic voice shouted, "Unauthorized access detected. Someone's coming." Elias shouted. Seralia quickly grabbed the data crystal. Go! They ran through the corridor as heavy doors slammed shut behind them. Security drones fired stun bolts, forcing them to duck and roll. Elias used a discarded pipe to knock one out of the air. They reached the maintenance tunnel and escaped just as the doors locked down. Breathing heavily, they hid in the shadows until the alarms faded. Elias looked at her and said between breaths, "You still think I'm just a distraction?" Seralia smiled faintly. "You're much worse." "You're trouble," he laughed. "That's the human way." By morning, the Academy buzzed with rumors of an intruder. Security teams searched every hall, but no one suspected the princess herself. Elias stayed hidden in the storage deck while Seralia met with her trusted guard, Captain Varen, a tall alien with silver armor. "Captain," she said quietly, "I need your help. What I show you must never leave this room." Varen's eyes widened when he saw the files. This is treason." "Yes," Seralia said. "And if we don't act, millions will die." But before he could respond, a cold voice echoed through the chamber. How touching. From the doorway stepped Chancellor Dravik, one of the Therian Council leaders, and the true head of the consortium. His black uniform gleamed in the dim light. Behind him stood soldiers. "I warned you, Princess," he said calmly. "Humans infect everything they touch. And now you too are poisoned by their chaos." Seralia stood firm. "You're a liar and a traitor, Dravik." Dravik smiled. "History will remember it differently." He gestured to the guards. "Take them." Elias suddenly appeared from behind a crate holding the data crystal. "Looking for this?" He shouted, then sprinted toward the exit. The guards chased him through the corridors, blasters firing. Seralia tried to follow, but Varen held her back. "Go, Princess." "He's buying you time." Elias reached the docking bay, heart pounding. He dove behind a cargo container, connected his communicator to the crystal, and began uploading the data to the Galactic Council's secure broadcast network. The upload bar moved painfully slow. 90%, 95. Then Dravik appeared holding a plasma pistol. "End of the line, human." Elias stood his ground. "You can shoot me, but you can't stop the truth." Dravik fired. The shot hit a nearby console and sparks exploded, but before he could aim again, Seralia arrived, using her energy staff to deflect his weapon. The force knocked him down and the final beep of the communicator sounded. Upload complete. The broadcast spread across the galaxy. Every council chamber, every academy screen lit up with the truth. Dravik's betrayal was revealed to all. Hours later, Elias and Seralia stood together in the quiet hangar, watching as guards led Dravik away. Elias gave her a tired smile. Guess the galaxy's going to have a lot to talk about. Saralia nodded softly. You just changed history, Elias Ward. He looked out at the stars. No, we did. For the first time, the galaxy began to see humans not as a threat, but as a species willing to fight for justice, even against impossible odds. And somewhere deep inside, Saralia felt something new, a quiet warmth that told her humanity's difference was not weakness, but strength. The storm was not over, but for now, hope had found its way among the stars. The galaxy was trembling. The truth had spread everywhere like a wave of light breaking through darkness. The broadcast that Elias and Princess Saralia released exposed the consortium of Balance, a secret group of powerful leaders who had been manipulating entire civilizations for years. Every major world received the evidence. Every council chamber replayed the files that showed how the consortium planned to start a war between humans and the Therian Empire. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy began questioning its own leaders. At the Galactic Academy, security ships swarmed around the towers. Reporters and officials filled the air with questions and demands. Elias Ward's name was being spoken in every corner of the station. Some praised him as a hero, others called him a troublemaker. But Elias himself was silent. He sat quietly on the steps outside the observatory, staring at the horizon of stars. The night felt calm, almost peaceful, but deep inside he knew the storm had only begun. Saralia found him there. Her royal robes were gone. She wore a simple academy cloak now, like any other student. Her silver hair shimmered under the moonlight. You should be resting, she said softly. Elias smiled faintly. Can't sleep? Too many people out there deciding what happens next. She sat beside him. The council has called for an emergency summit. All species will attend. They want to discuss peace or punishment. Punishment for us? Elias asked. For me, she said. For helping a human break into the archives. Elias shook his head. You did the right thing, Saralia. If they can't see that, then maybe they don't deserve to lead. She looked at him, her golden eyes calm. You humans are strange. You talk about courage like it's easy. He chuckled. It's not easy, but it's what keeps us going. There was silence between them, filled only by the hum of the distant ships. Saralia finally said, No matter what happens tomorrow, I want you to know, you've already changed everything. Elias looked away, feeling a mix of pride and fear. I hope it's for the better. The next day, the Grand Galactic Summit began. It was held in the Celestial Dome, a vast chamber floating above the Academy. Every world's representative sat in shining seats arranged in circles. Thousands of eyes watched the center of the room, where Elias and Saralia stood. The atmosphere was tense. The Therian delegates sat stiff and silent. Some humans had joined the audience, representing Earth's new colonies. The room buzzed with mixed emotions: anger, curiosity, hope. The High Speaker of the Council, an elder being with crystal blue skin, spoke first. Elias Ward, Princess Saralia, you both stand accused of violating Academy laws, breaching government data, and spreading classified information, yet you also revealed corruption that threatened every living world. We must now decide your fate and the fate of your people. Elias stepped forward. His voice was steady but humble. I never wanted to break your laws. I only wanted to stop a war. The files we found showed your own people planning to destroy us, humans, before we even had a chance to prove ourselves. Some delegates murmured in agreement. Others looked skeptical. He continued, Humans might be new to the stars. We don't have the technology you do. We don't live as long. But we try. Every step we take, we fall and rise again. That's who we are. He paused, meeting the High Speaker's gaze. If that's something to fear, then maybe it's not humanity that's the problem. Maybe it's the fear of change. Saralia stepped beside him. Her voice rang clear and powerful. He speaks the truth. I am heir to the Therian throne, and I chose to stand with him. I have seen humanity's strength not in weapons, but in their hearts. The galaxy needs that strength now. There was silence. Then one of the Therian nobles stood up angrily. You dare speak for your empire, princess? You've been blinded by that creature's emotion. Elias's fists tightened, but he said nothing. Saralia didn't flinch. She looked straight at the noble and said, Then let my eyes stay open while yours remain closed. A wave of gasps spread through the hall. The debate lasted hours. Delegates argued, shouted, and accused. But the truth was already too strong to hide. The evidence of the consortium's crimes was undeniable. By evening, the council made its decision. The High Speaker raised his hands for silence. Elias Ward and Princess Seralia, you are free of all charges. The council recognizes your actions as acts of bravery. The Therian Empire and humanity will open formal peace talks under joint supervision. Cheers erupted through the chamber. Human and alien delegates stood, applauding together for the first time in history. Elias exhaled deeply, relief washing over him. Seralia smiled gently. You did it, she whispered. He shook his head. We did, but not everyone was pleased. In the shadows beyond the chamber, a few remaining members of the consortium watched the celebrations with cold eyes. Their leader, a cloaked alien with pale scales, hissed quietly. They've united the people. Dangerous, very dangerous, another replied. Should we strike? The leader shook his head. No, let them believe they've won. We'll wait. Every spark of hope burns brightest before the dark, and with that they vanished into the void. Days passed. The academy returned to normal life, but things were different now. Humans were no longer treated as outcasts. Students from every race came to speak with Elias, curious about his homeworld and his kind. Some even wanted to visit Earth. Elias became a quiet symbol of change. He didn't seek fame or power. He simply went back to studying, training, and helping others. One evening, he returned to the same spot where it all began, the Academy lunch hall. It was noisy and bright, full of laughter. But when he sat down with his meal, he noticed something amusing. Several aliens were now trying Earth food for the first time. He smiled at the sight. Remembering the day he had shared his sandwich with a lonely princess, a familiar voice spoke behind him. Still eating the same strange food, human? He turned and saw Seralia. She was no longer wearing royal colors, just a simple silver coat. She sat down beside him, just like she had on that very first day. Some things never change, he said with a grin. She took a small piece of his sandwich again, biting it thoughtfully. Still odd, she murmured, but not bad. He laughed softly. Careful. You'll start a new trend, Seralia smiled. Perhaps that wouldn't be so terrible. Then she looked at him seriously. The peace conference begins next month. My people will meet your leaders on Therian Prime. I want you there, Elias. Me? He asked, surprised. You're the bridge now, she said. You showed both sides that trust is possible. I want the galaxy to see that. Elias hesitated, then nodded. If it helps, I'll go. Humanity doesn't give up on peace easily. Seralia smiled softly. That's what makes you different. Later that night, Elias walked through the Academy's garden. The stars glimmered above and the air felt cool and quiet. He thought about everything that had happened, how one small act of kindness had changed the fate of worlds. He realized something important. Power didn't come from weapons or armies. It came from small choices, from compassion, courage, and the will to do what was right even when it was hard. The universe was vast and full of darkness, but now he knew that humanity's light, however small, could reach far beyond the stars. When he looked up, he saw Seralia standing at the edge of the balcony, gazing into the same endless sky. He walked over to her. So, what do we do now? He asked. She smiled, her golden eyes reflecting the starlight. Now, we show them what humans and Therians can do together. Elias looked at the stars again, his heart calm. For the first time in his life, he didn't feel small in the universe. He felt part of it, and as the night wind carried the soft hum of distant ships, Seralia leaned closer and whispered the same words she had spoken on their first day together. You're different. Elias smiled. Maybe, but sometimes being different is what the galaxy needs most. Together, they stood beneath the stars, two friends, two worlds, and one spark of humanity that would light the path for generations to come.